games. It's ScrubGames. Double up. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at Scrub Games, and today we have another one of my deck of the week deck profiles, where I have a list I used during the last locals I went to. So if you've seen the gameplay from this week, you've seen that for last week on the last locals I played Obi-Wan ECL. So we're going to go over that because sometimes I do get comments on some of my videos from my gameplay from the locals asking for lists, and I can always provide my list, but for my opponents I don't go around asking for lists of decks I play against or people's lists. So unless it's asked for and the person wouldn't give it the list, then I don't really go and grab my opponent's lists. But for mine, I always put them up after the locals. And for this one, I played Obi-Wan ECL because because there's so many decks I want to try out, I've been putting up a vote on my YouTube, so people can vote between the decks I want to play for that week and pick a deck for me, because there's so many different decks that it's kind of like hard to choose which ones. And for this week, well, for the last week, it was a dead heat. So between three decks, it's between Obi-Wan with ECL as the base. The other one was Bosk Green, and then what crept up after, like within one day, I think he got like 6 votes to push up into to match the other two, was Vader Blue, like the heart, like OG control. And I was prepared for Obi-Wan and Bosk to be the two in a dead heat, because they were throughout the week going back and forth. And then it was just on the Friday when I went to locals, then Vader jumped up to be one of the contenders. But I had the other ones prepared because I make sure to prepare them the day before. So came to the point where at the end of it, all three had the same amount of votes and the same percentage on the poll. So since it wasn't like throwing which I was going to go for, I just got my first round opponent to pick what deck I had, and it was between Bosk and Kenobi, and he picked Kenobi, so I ended up playing that. So that is it. So we're going to get into the video now and actually get into it. So remember to like, comment, subscribe. Keeps you updated with my videos as and when they drop. And by clicking that notification bell, you can list to when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there at a later time. So let's get into it and check out my Obi-Wan ECL deck. So starting off with the leader. So this is Obi-Wan from set 3, Twilight of the Republic. This is the leader, and he is a blue and white. So he's a good side of blue leader. And he has a pretty nice deploy, not too late but not too early at 6 resources. But since we're playing green, we have abilities, we have effects to ramp up on our resources, so we can drop them a little bit earlier, so you can get them out by turn 4. Otherwise, it's by turn 5 at late at the standard. And he's got a pretty nice effect, and that is just healing damage on units. And that's pretty handy, especially with all these Target Town decks where they try to do a little bit of damage to a unit and then use Target Town to finish it off to get that control. Obi-Wan's got a nice little way using his effect to kind of get him out the range. So if your opponent wants to take out your first turn play, so you play a card, they play something that deals damage to it, and then they plan to use Target Town, you can use Obi-Wan and then just heal that damage off, so that way they can't use Target Town if it's not damaged, or maybe get out of the way so it won't die by Target Town. Really handy thing, and it's also really helpful when you clash with your opponent's units, keeping yours around so they take a bit of damage. You heal them off to kind of make them a little bit like a more survive a little bit longer. That's the kind of term they use, and that's what he does on his leader side. He also has the traits of Force, Jedi, and Republic, so you got some benefits there for all of them. We don't really capitalize on the Republic trait, but we do make use of the Force and Jedi traits. So when he does deploy, he comes down, as I said, 6 resources. He comes down as a 4/7, solid stats, solid stats. 4 power is a good amount of power, and 7 health is a very good amount. And that's very nice since he comes down with Sentinel as well. So he comes down with Sentinel, meaning that your opponent has to go through him before he can go to any other units in your board or to your base from the ground arena. But then if you do have another Sentinel, they can choose which Sentinel, because Sentinel just draws it to that one. Where if you've got 2 Sentinels in your board, your opponent can choose which Sentinel they attack into. And now his effect's kind of upgraded. It hasn't completely changed, because sometimes when a leader deploys, sometimes their effect completely changes, or it just upgrades their effect from in the leader area. And for Obi-Wan, his effect upgrades. So now he comes from not just healing damage from unit, but also manage to move that damage essentially to something in a sense. So his effect now is when you attack, you can heal 1 damage from a unit. Now you have to heal a damage. So if you're swinging and only your opponent has damage on units, then you have to heal 1 from your opponent's unit, so be wary of that. And then if you do heal damage, so like if there's nothing damage, you don't heal, but if there's something damage, you have to heal it. And then if you do heal damage from a unit, you can then deal 1 damage to a different unit. So you can't heal damage from a unit and put it back on that same unit. It has to be a different unit. And the nice thing about that is where it's a Sentinel, it's most likely going to get damaged, so then you can start taking damage off Obi-Wan himself, putting it on something else, so you can then maybe get to a point where you can take out something by putting extra damage on, or just moving damage around to something else, so that way it takes less damage and healing up your other stuff as well. So pretty nice effect, and it's more that it's kind of good call against Tarkin Town decks to heal damage when they're trying to ping damage on, or like against leaders that like Quinlan, which when play you can put damage on, and you can go, okay, I'm going to heal that 1 damage, take it off. So that's what I've gone for, and the base I went for was with ECL, because it's just a really handy thing to kind of bring it down, and with the fact blue and green both have healing, more in blue than it is in green, and you can kind of mitigate the fact that you've got a lower health base to get this great effect by having healing with it as well. Since you've got Sentinels, you can kind of stop your base being attacked, kind of make it so you kind of even lessening the fact that you got lower health, but getting a good effect of being able to play something with 6 or less and give it ambush for the phase, which could be very handy with some cards we've got. So it can help you clear the board earlier or make use of that full big 6 drop we've got to make use of it. So that is the leader and base. Now you kind of understand a bit. Now let's get into the list and start off with the units. So with the units, we're going to start off with the ones you can play as early as turn 1, and we have Restored Arc, we have Regional Governor, we have Battlefield Marine, and we have Colonel Yularen. Now these are all the units we can play as early as turn 1, and the thing with this is they're all pretty nice ones. They haven't got the most amount of bulk, but they've got some good amount. They've either got 3 or higher health, so they've got a good amount of health, and they've got some reasonable power. It's unlike, well, except from Battlefield Marine, has got the most power you can get from a 2-cost unit, and a good amount of health as well, just no effect. Now they all provide some nice little benefits. I wasn't running Regional Governor for the locals because there's some cards I didn't have or forgot, left them at home, so I didn't have to mitigate that with something else I had on me. And Regional Governor wasn't playing, but I would probably run because it's a nice thing to kind of shut off a card by having Obi-Wan out to kind of make it so it's a Sentinel. I have to go for him instead, and then have Regional Governor come down to put a cool card that you don't want your opponent to be able to play, like say Super Laser Blast and things like that, and have that turn off while it's on play, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi protecting that card as well. So it's a nice one for those kind of matchups, or even for turn 1, being able to shut off some certain cards from being played, potentially stop your opponent from having a first turn play or things like that. We got Restored Arc being a free copies of, so we got maximum copies of both Restored Arc and Battlefield Marine, because they're very good turn 1 plays in either arena. Restored Arc is going to start healing damage because it was Restore and having a good amount of stats, and Battlefield Marine just being a heavy hitter for its cheap cost. Then we've got 2 copies of Yularen, give him a bit more healing, so while you play a unit, when you play a command unit, or green unit, including itself, because nice that it says including itself, then you get to heal 1 damage from your base, giving you even more healing when you play those green cards. And we've got a lot of green units in this deck that can help trigger this, and also provide some good support onto the board as well. Next we have our 3-cost units, and those ones are Yoda, Village Protectors, Admiral Akbar, and Sundari Peacekeeper. So we haven't got the full playset of any of them, apart from Village Protectors yet. And that is because it's a Sentinel, so it helps protect your other units in that same arena and your base away from damage by having them have to go through it first. And the nice thing about Village Protectors is it also comes with a shield. It comes in shielded, so it's not the best stats at 2-2, which is not too bad, but not amazing, but it's decent. And being a Sentinel, the draw attacks into it, and also being shielded means it can survive at least 2 attacks, unless your opponent's got some kind of cool way to get through it, like say ping the damage and then swinging through it. Then it's going to stop 2 attacks and put out at least 4 damage across 2 attacks to something as well. And then we've got 2 copies of both Yoda and Sundari Peacekeeper. These ones give even more healing because they've both got Restore 2, meaning that when they swing, they heal 2 from your base. And they've got varying stats. You've got Yoda has 2 power and 4 health, which is pretty nice, pretty good. And you've got Sundari Peacekeeper who has only 1 power but 5 health, but it mitigates its power by having Raid 2, meaning that when it attacks, it hits for 2 more power than usual, so it hits for free, but it just doesn't do much when it's being attacked into. but it has that nice benefit of hitting quite hard for its cost, while also healing as well. And Yoda's got a nice effect where when it's defeated, you can choose any number of players between you and your opponent, and for each player you choose, so normally just yourself, you draw a card. So a nice way to replace itself, and a nice way to bring out, just if you get like against decks that board wipe, just keep bringing out Yoda so you can keep getting cards back and kind of making use of putting stuff on the board and getting those resources back to be able to spam the board again. And then we got one copy of Admiral Akbar. He is another one of these units that has Restore, because he's got Restore 1, so when he attacks, he's healing for 1. But he's got a nice effect, and he is quite lower in stats in terms of what he does, because he's a free cost that has 1 power and 4 health. But he's got a nice effect, for one played, you can deal damage to a unit equal to the number of units you control in that same arena. So if you choose a unit in the ground arena, you do damage to it equal to the number of units you have in your ground arena, or say in space, you do enough damage to it equal to the number of units in your space arena. And sometimes it can be enough to take a unit out or finish it off, but most of the time you can be using it to finish off or put a little bit of damage onto it, which is cool. We only got one copy because it's just a very handy card, and that's really it with it. And then we've only got one 4 cost, and that is 3 copies of Bright Hope. Now I don't have Concordant Interceptors because it's not the. I feel like space is quite tight for it, and I feel like Bright Hope's a little bit better when it comes to it as well. And the nice thing is because it's a Sentinel, and also got the benefit of having a lot more health. Like one more cost, it's got double the stats almost, I think, or at least one more power and 2 more health. And also, the nice thing about Bright Hope is you can also use this when played, which is you can return a friendly unit, non-leader unit in the ground arena to its owner's hand if you do draw a card. So you can save some of your cards that are almost damaged into the point where one more bit of damage to be taken out, or make use of, like, say, have you got Village Protectors and it's used up it's lost its shield, you can bounce it back to your hand, so next turn you can play it again, or you can then play it back down again, have a shield and Sentinel again. And also it's got Sentinel, which makes for a very nice effect when you combined with another card as well, which is kind of you want to come down with and support with it. And it's just a nice one because it's got 2 powers, so it's taking a good amount of space units your opponent has in things like Sabine and Django, that's the one, and a Sentinel, and a good amount of health to kind of survive some swings as well. So got a full playset. I wasn't running a full playset in because I forgot one at home and I forgot to bring my 3rd copy with me. But I would run normally 3 copies. Then we've got our 5 costs, and it is just Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite, so we've got more of our space units. And this one's pretty nice. We'll only run it at 2 copies because you don't want too many, because you don't want to flog your hand and to basically just whilst it just be dead in your hand, really, not be used or just take it up space. And it's a very nice one against those space-focused decks because it's got a nice 1 played on attack to allow you to deal damage to itself, to then deal 2 damage from their space unit. So, especially with ECL, if you got ECL and your opponent's got 3 space units, you've got ECL, you can also ECL this in, so play it out with ambush. So you can come down, attack a unit, and trigger your when played and on attack. So you can trigger its effect twice in the same attack, because you trigger it when it's played and when it attacks. So you can trigger those both, trigger ambush and trigger them both. And then you can then do essentially 2 damage to itself, and then 4 damage across, 2 damage to 2 different units. So 2 to 1, 2 to everyone taken out. You potentially take out 3 units by attacking into one and taking out the other 2 with this effect, which is quite nice. And then with Obi-Wan, you can start healing after that, the 1 damage you do, so you can keep doing it over and over again. Very nice space unit. Only use it 2 because it's there for when you go against space-focused decks, to have this as an ECL target, which is pretty nice. Then we have our 6 cost, and this is a nice little benefit and why I prefer Concordant Interceptors and Bright Hope are basically the same in terms of the fact they're a Sentinel, but then General Rykard is a very nice one to kind of boost it up, and we run this in this because it's a very nice one that combos with your leader and also with your Sentinels like Village Protectors and Bright Hope. Because the nice thing about it is that when played or when it attacks, so just like with Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite, if you ECL this in, which is what you mainly want to do with Entity Creation Lab when you deploy Obi-Wan, is to trigger its effect twice. And its effect essentially, you choose a friendly unit, and if it has Sentinel, you give it an experience token to it. If it doesn't have Sentinel, it gains Sentinel for this phase. So just by playing it normally or just attacking or playing, you can either give a unit Sentinel, so like himself, or another unit Sentinel, so your opponents have to go to attack that unit before they can go to other units in that same arena or to your base. and if it already has Sentinel, you power up. And the nice thing about this is that you can play it down, choose something like your leader when it's deployed, Vigil Protectors, or Bright Hope, and give an extra experience, increase his stats by 1/1. So every time you do it, increase an extra 1/1 to that unit, so make first time on any of them, turning Vigil Protectors into a 3/3 at a 2/2, or Bright Hope into a 3/7, which is even bigger, and then even your leader into a 5/8, which is cool. And the great thing about it, just like with when you play it with Ambush using ECL, you get to trigger its effect twice. So either then, if you don't have a Sentinel on board, choosing a card like himself as a Sentinel, and then choosing himself again to then give experience. Now he has Sentinel, so it increases him to a 6/8, or choosing another unit that has Sentinel and giving him 2 experience tokens to give him an extra 2/2 boost permanently what's on board, and then every time it's still there, like say if you got Obi-Wan in, you can then ambush it in, give Obi-Wan extra 2 experience using the effect when played when on attack, to give it 2 more experience, turning it then to a 6/9, and then Obi-Wan's a Sentinel to protect it from being attacked into, so you can then trigger even more after that, and just keep making your leader stronger, and your leader having to take damage by being a Sentinel can then attack, move the damage off itself on something else to keep it nice and fresh. I only include 2 of these 2 cards, Over Sprite and Raiken, because they're cards you want to have with ECL against certain kind of decks or for certain plays, and Raiken's a bit more general, you're mainly going to be using because most of battles are in the ground arena and you can always attack into leaders with this, whereas Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite, that is one for focus for more space focused decks or just a good space unit in general. And then we go into our bigger units. Then we go into free Luke Skywalker. Like, why would you not? If you're playing a blue heroic deck, you're then going to always playing Luke Skywalkers unless you don't have them, because it's just such a fantastic card. A 7-drop 7/6 is great. Restore 3, meaning it swings and heals 3 damage for your base, and a great effect being a minus power on a unit. 3/3 if you haven't lost anything, but if you've lost a unit this phase, then you minus it by 6/6, which is cool. Remember, it's only when a unit was defeated, not anything else. If it's bounced back to hand, won't trigger, but if a unit was defeated, which you can always use to trigger by crashing something in to force something to be defeated on yours, then you can trigger it to minus something by 6/6, which most of the time, when you do use it, you're going to be putting something down to 0, or to like basically have it then defeated because it's got 0 health, or in the realm of being a lot weaker, so you can kill it with something else, which is cool. So 3 copies of that. If you don't have 3 copies, I can't really recommend something that can replace it because it's kind of unique, but you can try and figure out things if you want to. But I think, like, yeah, there's no replacement for Luke, and Luke's just that great. Then we've got 3 copies of Home 1, another legendary for the deck, and an amazing one as well, because this allows you to just increase basically go wide on your board and give even more healing through all your other units, having Restore 1 while having Restore 2 on itself. Like, it's 8 cost, 7/7, so pretty good stats for its cost. And when played, you can play a heroic unit from your discard pile, and it costs 3 less. So if it costs 3 or less, so any of these 2 cost, 3 costs, plays for absolutely free. If it costs more than 3, you have to pay. It gets reduced by 3 of its costs, so you have to pay just whatever is left of the card's cost. Play it out. So if you want to play a Bright Hope, you just have to pay 1 extra resource along with what you paid for Bright Hope. Oh, sorry, Home 1. And then for the other ones, you have to pay a little bit more, so you can play out a Luke. So for 12 resources, you can play out a Home 1 and then play out a Luke from your discard, which is really cool. Or even play like for 10, oh no, 11, play out a Bright Hope and play out a General Raiken from your discard for just 3. So for 11 as well, and then use Raiken to then boost up Home 1. No, not boost up Home 1, but then make one of them a Sentinel, depending on what one you want it for. So really good card, and allows you to basically just increase your board size, and especially when you're bringing out, like, say, Admiral Akbar, Vigil Protectors, Yoda out for free, it's great, and that's the main one you're going to bring out. You're mainly bring out Vigil Protectors if you need a Sentinel in your ground arena, or you're going to bring out Yoda or Jedi Peacekeeper, has then good units in play, because then Yoda, if it's defeated, draws your card, whilst the Jedi Peacekeeper's got a good amount of bulk and can then start healing by swinging. And the Restore member stacks as well. So if you say have a Home 1 and a Luke out on board, when the Luke swings, it will restore 3 from itself, an extra 1 thanks to Home 1 giving extra restore, means it's then got technically Restore 4. So a good amount of healing here for that. And then our last unit we've got is Reinforcement Walker. So we've only got 2 copies of this because what's good, I prefer to have Home 1 or Luke Skywalker, but Reinforcement Walker is still great because it's got solid stats. An 8 cost, 6/9 is pretty good amount of bulk, hits for a decent amount of power. and just when it's played or when it attacks, you get look at top card of your deck. Now it gives you two options. You can either draw that card and add to your hand to have more options, or if you don't need it or don't want it, you can discard it to then heal 3 damage to your base, extra healing. So all your big end stuff, like Luke, Home 1, and Reinforcement Walker, are all healing in some way, shape, or form, either by Restore or by their effects, which is very, very good. And Reinforcement is quite nice, just to keep adding stuff to your hand, so later in the game if you need certain cards, or draw certain cards, you can just grab them to increase your hand size, to kind of go against any potential hand control, or add a nice bit of heal. And even if you can't ECL any of these in, because ECL is limited to a 6 or less, but you have a ways to kind of still give them ambush, which we'll see in a bit. So that's all the units. Now let's have a look and see what upgrades we've got in the deck now. Starting off with our lightsabers, we've got Jedi lightsaber and General's Blade. Now I got this as 2 and 2, and now sometimes you'll see lists where they have either they either have just one, so they have either just lightsaber or just General's Blade, and have 4 free copies of them. But for me, I've decided to go for 2 and 2 of each because they're both great and they both cost 3, and they both give a free boost. And they both can have nice beneficial effects, could be more beneficial in certain ones. And I feel like having just 6 lightsabers in a deck could be cloggy. And I don't want to focus on just basically having Obi-Wan to focus on giving a ton of lightsabers. So then where he's like huge, because then a single Rival's Fall takes him out. But I feel like having 2 of each gives you nice little options, because you're technically running a 4th copy of either of them, because they're both given the good stats for the cheap cost. And they both offer different things, like Jedi lightsaber. If it's a Force unit, you equip it to, so that means you've got some options. You've got Luke to put it on, you've got Yoda to put on, and you've got your leader. So not too many targets, but a decent amount of targets, and your leader is always going to be available when you do draw lightsaber to put on it. So there is that. And it makes it so when it attacks, the defender gets -2/2 to the stats for that phase. You can swing into a unit, minus stats by 2/2, so you take less damage attacking into it, and it's easy to take down due to having 2 less health and 2 less power. So, and then we got General's Blade for the Everyone, and our General's Blade's effect is relevant to a Jedi. So as again, you can only really put this on to get the full effect from Yoda, Luke Skywalker, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, because they're the only Jedis in here. But this effect is to, when you attack, the next unit you play this phase costs 2 less. So you makes it so you can play a unit cheaper for this phase. And the nice thing is, you're mainly going to put this on leader, because you know you can deploy that and always have that available as soon as you can deploy. And your leader can get both benefits, because it's both a Force and a Jedi, and it increases it from being just a 4/7 to a 7/10, and even further if you put a second one on. So if you put either one onto a unit, onto your leader, it gets a 6/6 boost. It turns from a 4/7 to a 10/13. And given that your leader is a Sentinel, your opponent's going to have to go into this big unit to attack, because they can attack everything unless they got Saboteur. And then you're essentially your opponent's going to lose whatever they attack into it. And then you're huge and probably not have to worry. And then you can just swing and start healing off of Obi-Wan or something else and get the benefits of things like this. Now, I prefer General's Blade because you can make things cheaper and allows you to bring up, say, like Reinforcement Walker for 6, Luke for 5, things like that. Pretty cool. But then Jedi's Lightsaber just make it a little bit easier to take out units by making them weaker when you attack into them. So I got the 2/2 split, and just a nice thing about them as well, even if you don't have them for your Obi-Wan, you can still, they're free cost upgrades you can put onto anything that's not a vehicle, anything that's not a spaceship or your Reinforcement Walker, and then just make them stronger. So turning a Battlefield Marine from a 3/3 to a 6/6 by just putting on the second, like turn 1 play Battlefield Marine, turn 2 play one of these until 6/6. It's going to make it so your opponent's going to have a hard time dealing with it unless they put loads of units attacking into it, or even make your Village Protectors a little stronger, or even say like Akbar Village Protects Sundari Peacekeeper, anyone who's a little bit bigger, so that way they stick around for a little bit longer and you got the benefit there. So like you can get the full benefits on by putting on one of those 3 units, Yoda, Luke, or your leader. But you can put on the other units that aren't vehicles to kind of boost them up, so they stick around a little bit longer and a bit more threatening. And the last upgrade we got is 3 copies of Perilous Position, and this is another reason why I've kind of we put the other upgrades down to just 2 copies each, because Perilous Position is just a fantastic one since it came out in this set. It's the first upgrade to give minus stats to a unit, and for free cost you can put on a unit. That unit then gets exhausted, so when played you exhaust that unit, which is cool, and then you minus the stats, make it a little bit weaker, and it just gives twofold. It just makes the unit weaker, so if anything that has 2/2 to the stat, 2 health, is killed by this because they go down to 0, defeated, and you exhaust the unit as well. So if you don't want something to attack, you put this on it. Not only is it rested, but it's now weaker, so next time you potentially take it out a little bit easier, which is cool, and just very, very, very handy upgrade. And those are the upgrades. So the two sabers to help with making your leader, or get the benefits on certain cards, or you can just box certain other cards up for cheap, and in Paris position be able to just store a card and even weaken it so you can take it out a little bit easier. Next we have our last line of cards, and those are the 5 events we have in this deck. So starting off with the first one, we've got 1 copy of Timely Invention. I did want to put an extra copy in because it's quite handy to give even more ambushing, because we only have ambushing on our ECL, but we have that time whenever you want, one-time use, whereas Timely Invention often the same thing, just at an extra cost. So you pay. So if you're just hard casting this card and not smuggle it in, you're paying 1 on top of the card's cost. So like a Luke Skywalker could come in an ambush if you play it for 8, including the 1 for Timely Invention, or you can smuggle it out for an extra 2. So you've got any time you want, but it costs an extra 2 to smuggle stuff in. So if you want to, say, ambush in a Reinforcement Walker, you can do that by paying 10 to have it come in, but then it gets its effect off twice. Because the nice thing about Timely Invention is you get to play the unit from your hand, give it ambush for this phase, space come in and ambush. And like I said, you can smuggle it in for 2 cost, or play it from hand for 1 cost as its cost of the card. Now this is something I did want to have one more copy of, but I felt 1 is enough to have 1 copy of it because it's the only small card in the deck, so I'm kind of free unless someone's quite lucky for scanning officers. And then it's just something handy that you can resource, or you can use it from your hand to make it if you really need it right then and now. But it just gives you an extra ECL that your opponent might not see coming, which is cool. Next, we've got 3 copies of Resupply. Now, for the light side of the game, you have a little bit less in terms of ramping cards, because I think you've got the same amount I think in each side, because both sides have Resupply. Both sides, if you want to, have Command, and then both sides have 1 for their different sides. Like you got Super Laser Technician for the dark side, and you got Spark of Hope for the good side. So technically, you got the same amount of in either side in ramp. But the thing is, the dark side has better ramp because Super Laser Technician is a lot better and even comes in active when you ramp it, and it's a lot easier to trigger. Whereas Spark of Hope is a lot more technical to trigger, and it does cost a little bit cheaper, but it's more technical when you need something to be defeated that phase, and then pay 2 resources to play some Spark of Hope to basically trigger that. But so it's not as great and requires a little bit more in the requirements, but so you've got less kind of options, or less amazing options or great options compared to the dark side. So we've just got the 3 copies of Resupply, because if you don't ramp up to get out Obi-Wan quicker, you can still see it later after that to ramp up, and if you do see it, you can drop Obi-Wan a little bit quicker. It's just nice. And normally you kind of want you can ramp straight away on turn 2 if you've got it, so you can ramp straight from 3 to 4, so you get the 5 resource the next one, and then start playing out some few cards like Fidget Protectors and a 2 cost maybe, or a 3 and a 2, or you can use it on the turn when you got 5 resources, so it's turn 4, so you can drop Obi-Wan the same turn. But then normally what you want to do with Obi-Wan is have him so you can deploy him and then put a lightsaber on, or maybe like ECL Riken after you deployed him. So sometimes you would probably prefer to use Resupply to go from 4 to 5, because even though it gives you just 1 resource you can't really use, you still the next turn be able to ramp with Obi-Wan, and then you have your ECL in Riken, or you can play just hardcast play Riken without ECLing, or even put some upgrades onto him, or play out a unit and put an upgrade onto him. So that's the kind of thing you want to do. Then we've got our removal events for the next lot. So we've got Vigilance, we've got Takedown, and we've got Velvet Dragon. So we've got a removal, and I wasn't playing Vigilance during the tournament because I forgot I left it in a different deck. So when before the tournament, I couldn't remember which deck it was in or where they were, so I had to supplement them with or change them up with something else. But Vigilance is something I would have in, because even though you've been paying 6 for this, it's a nice way to kind of help you out, because it gives you a good amount of options. Now you will pay 6 instead of 4 because aspect penalty, because you've got the 1 blue Obi-Wan, that second blue. But it's nice because it gives you kind of a mill out as well if you're against like hard control decks, which is cool. You get the heal 5 damage for your base, so kind of a bit of healing there. You get to take out something that's 3 or less remaining HP, which could be handy for removal, or you can give a shield tank to units, like you can give a shield, say, to Obi-Wan or something like that, which is quite cool. So we've got nice options, and sometimes it's kind of worth doing it because build both heal and shield. So like heal 5 from your base and shield Obi-Wan is very, very cool. And you can use it on the same turn you play Obi-Wan as well, and just it could be handy. And if you don't find it handy, you can always resource it as well. Then we've got our 2-2 split of the removal events. I've gone for 2 takedown and 2 follow dragon because I feel like you've got enough cards that kind of help with the early game to make it so you don't need a full playset of takedown, and then you've got some good units to play in the late game to help like manage the later game stuff. So you kind of, but then it's a little bit harder to take out bigger things when they're a bit stronger. So Fellow Dragon could be used at 2 instead of just 1. So I've gone for a 2-2 split. So you got Takedown and Fellow Dragon because they both serve different purposes. Whereas Takedown can take out any unit, even leaders, as long as they have 5 or less health. Whereas Follow the Dragon can hit any non-leader unit that has 5 or more power. So the stronger they are, the easier it is to hit Follow the Dragon. Whereas the weaker they are, the easier they hit with Takedown. So that is the events. Not many events. We've got only 11 events because we don't want to fill up too much. We've got some upgrades, so we've got a good amount of units as well, and you've got a good spread of them to have ones to play early in the game, and then have bigger ones to help when you get to those later turns to help start bringing out big things. And even when you start getting to 12 resources, be able to use Home 1 to recycle Luke Skywalker, so you can technically play out Luke 6 times if you use all your Home 1s, then play out Luke again. Which is really cool. And then you got Raikkonen, at least 2 copies of Raikkonen, so you can hopefully see him when you drop one, which is useful. So you can start boosting up and just making him bigger and bigger, so your opponent's going to have a harder time getting through this huge Sentinel. So that's the main deck. But we do have the side deck as well, so I will go over my side deck and kind of show that. So let's have a look and see what the side deck looks like. So here's my side deck, and what I've got is 3 copies of Scanning Officer, because Han is like probably the most popular and the deck that's performing the best currently in the in this kind of format or this meta game, because since Boba's gone, Han's kind of been taking the wins more often. I think it started off with like a lot of aggro with like Tarkin Town speed and stuff like that, but Han has kind of started putting in results in taking down events, top 8ing a lot more than most other decks. Where I think some people even thinking that it's the new Boba, which I say, but it's not really the new Boba because Boba was just dominating to a huge degree. Whereas Han is doing a lot and taking up a huge percentage, but it's not really the new Boba. So we've got 3 scanning officers to help deal with that, or you deal with smuggle strategies, kind of have as something useful that kind of like really hurts Han, which is quite nice. We've got 2 copies of Tranquility. This is for against high control decks because even though we're not really playing any Republic cards outside of the Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite. I think Aether Sprite, yeah, I think it is called. So apart from Obi-Wan's spaceship that we're calling, you can it's the only Republic unit you're playing. But the nice thing about with this is it just when it's played, you grab back any Republic unit from your discard pile, and a nice thing is it is itself a Republic unit. So it's a way to keep playing a Republic unit out and keep like a unit on board. So if they try to keep taking out your unit, you can just keep playing Tranquility out and grab back another copy itself to keep having that nice flow of units to play, which is quite cool. And if you do get attack in, the next time you play a Republic unit, it costs 1 less, which is quite cool. So you can start playing out the next one for 6 instead of 7, which is really cool. So it helps keep a unit in play for against high control. Then we've got 2 copies of Traitorous, so for against those decks that either just spam a load of basically just keep playing out a load of cheap units, or that's not boosting up those cheap units. You can just take hold of them and go there. They're now mine, as long as it's a 3 cost or less. And you can always switch this out for one of the sabers that are not as useful. So if you feel like Jedi lightsaber is a bit less useful in the deck against a certain matchup, or you find General's blade is a little bit less useful, then you can always switch them in for 2 copies of Traitorous, which could be handy. And then we've got 1 copy of restocks that help against those high control decks, just to help, especially with our Vigilances, to help go against and counter the mill strategy with high control decks. Or even to just, if you get milled yourself, just swap yourself and deck out, or put back some of those cards you do want, or reuse some of your decks out for against those like really grindy games. I always have restock in my deck because I've just played the high control so much that I'm just used to putting restock in every single deck to help against those decks. And then we got 2 copies of Rivals 4. Sometimes you just want to take out a leader, or you want to take out something, or you got something that is with just outside the range of the other removal card you've got. So you might want to put Rivals 4, and you can always switch out, say, an upgrade for them. So either one of the 2 blades, or you can switch out, say, if the other dragon's not so useful, switch out for Rivals 4, or vice versa with take down, things like that. So just thinking about, you could even main deck Rivals 4 if you want to. I'm not sure what I would switch out for it, but it's also something you do. But do remember that with a side decks are more personal to the player, to the meta, or to the event you're going to, or locals, things like that. So don't just copy and paste any side deck. Just think about it. If you feel like a card is not as, you don't like a card in the side deck, change it out for whatever you want. So remember, you can make it more personal to you. Take out the things that you think aren't going to be useful. You might see things that you kind of see, oh, that could be useful. Use them, but never just take it, because it could be that like certain cards aren't useful because you're a meta or whatever you're going to take it to, or how you play yourself. So that is the full deck. So give me some comments down below if you have any changes or suggestions for it. It'd be good to have. Gets a bit of discussion going. If you like the video, feel free to like the video. It helps out. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get updates from when I do drop my videos, and just check out the other content. But that's it for me today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.